Good morning. My name's Chris Fenton, and I'm the service manager for Melco. While we're waiting for everybody to join in at 10 o'clock, I just wanted to introduce myself and tell you that we'll be going over the maintenances today that are prompted by the operating software for the machines. These maintenances apply to the EMT16 and the Bravo products. They also go all the way down to XTS and the red and whites. So procedures will be a little bit different depending on your version of software, but essentially we're going to be doing the same lubrications process for all of the model types.
Okay, it's 10. We're on.
All right. So again, I just want to reintroduce myself. My name's Chris Fenton. I am the service manager for Melco. This morning we're going to be going over the maintenance procedure for the embroidery machine that is prompted to you by the operating software. This maintenance is good for the EMT Plus, EMT, Bravos, red and whites, XT, and XTSs. Depending on your version of software, it will be a little bit different, but this will apply to all of the products that I just listed. If we go to the operating software, we are currently in the advanced view. I'm going to switch over to the UI for 1 second. For you users that are running the UI, the maintenance procedure is the same. The only difference is that it is done by daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. And you can see these little clocks flashing here is an indication that this maintenance does need to be performed. So, but we're going to go ahead and do it off of the advanced side today. So let me get the software back over to the advanced. And where we are going to be is under Tools, Settings, and Timers. If you notice here on the top of this box, there is a check mark here that says Maintenance Timers Enabled. Please make sure that this is checked. If that is not checked, you are not going to receive the prompt on your main sewing screen telling you that this maintenance is required. So the very first one that we are going to go through today is the rotary hook. So in order to go through this, all I've got to do is click on the Step tab, and I'm going to get a warning. It just says, please follow all maintenance procedures carefully. Melco is not responsible for damage to the equipment, and Melco cannot be responsible for over-oiling. So next, this is just an explanation of what we're doing. It's every 200,000 stitches or 4 to 5 hours. This is the lubrication of the rotary hook. I would also recommend that you go ahead and just lube the rotary hook every morning before you go to start stitching. What can happen if you don't lubricate the oil or lubricate the rotary hook enough is thread breaks. The hook is going to get dry and it's not going to cast the thread off correctly, and it's going to cause you to have a thread breaking issue. So as you can see, the first step is we want to go ahead and remove the bobbin case. So if we come over to the machine, we've just got our one clasp, and we're just going to remove the bobbin case and go ahead and set it out. We're going to take some canned air and just blow out this portion of the rotary hook, right where you took the bobbin out of. The reason you want to do that is you can get a lot of excess dust buildup in there. Oil and dust, oil collects dust, so you would want to make sure we get that area blown out. Next is that we are actually going to lubricate the rotary hook. So if you go back to the software, you will see on the picture that's provided by the software that we have a green highlighted area of where the oil needs to go for the rotary hook. So The hook actually does not have a highlighted green area. It's only going to be in the pictures. And that is just to demonstrate to you the proper area to lube the rotary hook. If you have an EMT 16, 16 Plus, or a Melco Bravo, when you're lubricating the oil hook or the rotary hook, you're going to see a black area and a silver area at about the 6 o'clock position. If you were to use this as a clock, you're going to want to put your drops of oil right in between the black and the silver area of the rotary hook. So we're going to go ahead and click next. And this is just telling us to go ahead and reinsert our bobbin case. Next, and now we have got the completed symbol for the maintenance. If we look at the software, you will now notice that the stitches remaining for the rotary hook automatically reset itself. So the software is intuitive. It knows that you stepped through the process, and it will reset the timer for you. The next one that we are going to do is the 2 million stitch maintenance. This maintenance is going to consist of the needle drive and upper V-rail and needle bars. So we're going to go ahead and click next. We get a warning here that says remove any clamping systems. The reason that we want clamping systems removed is the pantograph, or what is also known as the X and the Y axis, are going to be making movements throughout this lubrication process. If you have a clamping system on the machine, you have a potential of that clamping system contacting the needle case, which can cause severe damage to your machine, and in most instances is going to require a service call to get that repaired. So please read the warnings when you're going through and doing these maintenances. So we're going to go ahead and click next. You'll notice you could see the pantograph did move on the machine. The machine is color changing over to needle number 16. And on the software, you'll see that we are adding oil to the oil reservoir that is on the top of the embroidery machine, immediately left of the needle case. And we are asking for 25 drops of oil. What this lubrication does is it lubricates what's called the reciprocator. The reciprocator is the item that moves up and down on your active needle or the needle you're sewing on, and that's what actually makes the needle bar go up and down for the machine to create a stitch. Again, lack of lubrication of this reciprocator is probably going to result in thread breaks and also very loud noise coming from the machine when the needle is going up and down or is sewing. So if we go to the software and we click next, our next lubrication is what's called the upper V-rail. That is this item right here. So this rail here is the linear movement of the needle case. So when your needle case is color changing, this rail is what the needle case is sliding on. Lack of lubrication of this can cause loud or louder color changing, and if not done at all or neglected, it could cause you to have color change errors with your machine. So all we're doing on this one is we're just wiping off the excessive oil that we've got there, and then we're reapplying oil right onto the top of the rail. Again, you're going to use your oiler that is provided in the operator's kit for the machine, and we are just oiling right along the top of the rail. So we're going to go ahead and click next. And you're going to notice that the machine is color changing all the way over to needle number 1 now. And what we're lubricating now here is the upper right side V-rail. So again, we're just wiping, and then we're just applying some oil right to the top of the rail. Machine is color changing over to its original starting position. Now what we are going to lubricate is the lower needle bars. Again, lack of lubrication of the needle bars. You're going to have loud sewing and you're going to have thread breaks. You could also get some Z errors, Z-axis timeout or a Z tracking. If your machine is a Maya red and white, an XT or an XTS, you do not have these little access holes in order to oil the lower needle bars. You actually remove this lower cover. It's a magnetic access cover, and that gives you access to all of the lower needle bars. If you're on an EMT 16 or a 16 plus or a Melco Bravo, due to the addition of this thread guide that's here on the cover that has the felts, we added these access holes because if you take this cover off, you unthread your needles and through the lower needle bar guides. So you just come straight in through these holes and you're adding 1 to 2 drops to each needle bar position, 1 through 16. And that's going to lubricate the lower portion of the needle bar. And if we click next, now we're doing the upper portion of the needle bars. To do these, you will go through the vertical slots right here that the take-up levers right in. Again, you're going to lubricate 1 through 16. Now, what I would like you to be aware of, and this is for all of the products, on approximately 8 through 12, if you look through these vertical slots, you're going to see a green printed circuit board in there. That is the circuit board for the thread sensor. We want to avoid getting oil on that circuit board. So when you're lubricating, make sure that you're getting your oiler pin all the way in until you feel it contact the needle bar. Just don't get it in a little bit and start dropping oil because you might get oil on that circuit board. We're going to go ahead and click next. The pantograph is moving back to the hoop center position, and we have now completed the 2 million stitch maintenance. And again, our timer has reset. So now our next one is going to be our 10 million stitch. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click step. And again, you've got to do your maintenances carefully. Melco cannot be held responsible for any damage to the machine. What we're going to do on this one is the XDrive Rails, Y bearing blocks, X cable tension, and grabber eccentric. Again, we're telling you, please remove any clamping systems that you have on the machine. This should also include cap frame drivers. Do not have your red or your graphite cap frame driver mounted on the machine when you're doing these maintenances. So you can see our pantograph has moved all the way to the back and to the left. And if we stay on the software for this one, you'll see that we're removing the right side end cap. This is going to give you access to what's called the X rails. So if I click next, we will be able to show this with the other camera when we do the other side, so we'll stay on the software for this. Up inside what's called the X beam, there are some rails, and that's what's depicted in this picture. We need to go ahead and wipe off the excessive grease. And then we're going to go ahead and apply some new HP grease. So the HP grease is, I believe, now what we have available for the multi-purpose grease that the Maya Red and White XT and XTSs have in their operators kits. So you would want to get on shopmelco.com and you can order some red HP grease. So we're going to go ahead and click next. Now the X-axis is moving all the way to the right. And we're going to go to camera number 2, and you're going to remove this end cap, which is going to give you access to those 2 rails. I'm going to click next, same procedure. I'm coming up inside of here and I'm cleaning the excess grease off of the front and the back rail. And then I'm clicking next and I'm going to apply new grease. So if we could go to the software picture again, there's one item I wanted to point out. When you are on the left side, there is a machined hole that's in the bottom of the X-beam right here. In that hole there is a black plastic piece. Well, that black plastic piece is a photo optic. And that photo optic is what sets your X center. So if you get grease on that photo optic and the machine goes to move the X-axis and it drives all the way one way and stops and gives you an X timeout or an X tracking, the very first place I would check is that photo optic to make sure that no grease got on that photo optic. So we're going to go ahead and click next again. And that is going to move our pantograph back to hoop center. We are going to color change over to needle 16. In the interest of time, I have already removed the side covers off of this machine. But that's what this step is doing. So it color changes over to needle 16 so that you can get access to the front screw of the cover. So what we are lubricating here is the bearing block. So if we go to camera number 2, that is this gray item right here. In the top of this gray item right here, there is an oil hole. Now there are oil wicks down inside of this assembly to absorb the 25 drops of oil that we put into the machine. So again, you would just take your oil applicator and drop 25 drops into that reservoir. We're going to go ahead and click next, and this is now telling you, okay, go ahead and reinstall that cover. Now the machine is going to color change all the way over to needle number 1 so that you can access this front screw here again to remove the right side cover. Once we have that cover removed, we're lubricating the right side exactly the same way that we did the left side. There's one additional step on this side, and this is asking you to check your X-axis cable tension. The software prompts you to do it on the right. We're going to demonstrate on the left for purpose of the video. You can do this on either side. So we're going to go to camera number 2, and this fixture is in the operator's kit. It's the X-axis cable tension fixture. All you do is drop that fixture on, and if that cable is riding within the large cutout, your X-axis cable tension is correct. So if we go to the software and click next, we actually give you an example. If your cable is within that large cutout, you've got a green check, you're good to go. If it's above that large cutout, that's an indication that your X cable tension is loose. So we're going to go ahead, even though this machine is in spec, we're going to say that it's out of spec so that we can step through this procedure. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my fixture. Up here at the front is where the cable interfaces with the embroidery machine. And just like the picture shows, you've got two places that you can use wrenches to adjust this cable. So if we click next, we give you a demonstration of use a crescent wrench on the back side, and I believe it's a 7mm wrench on the front nut. And as you're tightening that nut, you will actually see the cable in the Xaxis cable tension fixture. You'll actually see that cable start to move down into the large cutout of the fixture. We're going to go ahead and click next. It tells us to remove the gauge because the machine is going to move the pantograph or the X and Y around so that we can check our tension again. So again, we're telling you, please remove that X cable tension gauge. If you do, or if you don't, Melco is not responsible for the damages. So the machine's now moving the pantograph around to kind of move that cable in different positions. And then once it's completed with this, we will check our X cable tension again. Symptoms of improperly tensioned X cable are going to be registration issues. Outlines not lining up. There's numerous other things that can contribute to that also, such as loose hoop arms, incorrect locator clips on the hoop arms, loose hooping, but X cable tension can also be a contributing factor to that. So the machine is now finished moving the axes. We're going to go ahead and go to camera 2 again, and I will put my gauge back on. And as long as I hit in the middle of that large cutout, my X-axis cable tension is within spec. So I will go ahead and click next. Again, we give you the prompt. Are you out of spec or in spec? We're going to go ahead and say in spec. And we have now removed our gauge. Again, Melco saying please remove the gauge. And now we're going to reinstall our cover. So the next one that we are going to do now is what's called the grabber eccentric. This one, I believe, probably gets missed quite a bit just because people aren't 100% sure of what they are lubricating. So if we could go to camera number 2, as the picture shows, you're looking at the needle case from the back of the top left corner. On very outboard is what's called the grabber motor. If we work our way in from the grabber motor, you are going to see a gold piece. That is the grabber eccentric. So if we click next and we take a look at the software, you can see that coming off of that grabber eccentric, there's a linkage that runs all the way down the left side of the needle case. We need to slide that linkage inboard so that we can actually get the grease on the grabber eccentric where the linkage rides. So that's the reason that this picture is having you push that linkage over to the left. So we're going to click next. And if anybody has ever wondered what that wood stick was for in your operator's kit, it's a grease applicator, and this is probably the only place that you will use it. So all we're doing is just putting some of that red HP grease on that gold eccentric so that when that linkage slides back over, it's going to actually be on the greased portion. And that completes our 10 million maintenance procedure. So now we are on our second to the last, which is our 30 million stitch procedure. We're going to go ahead and click step. Again, it's saying please follow all maintenance procedures carefully. Melco is not held responsible. What we're going to do on this procedure is your take-up lever cam, presser foot cam follower, right needle bar guide, presser foot cam, and left needle bar guide. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. Again, clamping systems need to be off of the machine. So our pantograph is moved forward. The machine is color changing over to needle number 1. Reason that's color changing to needle number 1 is we need to remove this front right black cover. In your Allen wrench set that comes with the machine, that is going to be a 3 millimeter. So we're going to remove the 5 screws that attach this cover to the machine. 4 of them are the larger black ones that require the 3 millimeter. And the bottom one is a little silver button head, and that will be a 2.5 millimeter. So we've got those 5 screws removed. We're going to go ahead and click next, and we give you a instruction of how you've got to remove this cover. So that will remove the cover off of the machine. Now with the cover removed, the machine has rotated the Z-axis a little bit, and we are gaining access to what is called the Takeup Lever Cam. We're going to stay on the software. As you can see, you have this black portion right here. This is the Takeup Lever Cam. And we need to get the red HP grease on the back side of this take-up lever cam. We will see a lot of machines where that take-up lever cam has grease all over it, except for the area where it needs to be. So please make sure that you get it on the back side of the take-up lever cam. Lack of lubrication of the take-up lever cam is going to cause false bobbin breaks and eventually very, very poor sew quality. So we've now got our lubricant on the back of the take-up lever cam. We're going to go ahead and click next. And we are going to do the presser foot. Now this instruction has you lift the presser foot up. Justin, if we could zoom in right here. What can happen though is if you lift this presser foot up, it's very easy to get the presser foot stuck on top of the clamp that holds the needle in. If that happens and the machine goes to rotate the Z-axis, it's going to lock up. So be very, very careful that you do not get that presser foot stuck on top of that clamp that holds the needle in. So the reason that we're having you hold the presser foot up is if we click next on our software, the area we need to lubricate is in between this white piece right here and this kind of brown colored follower arm. That is what controls the height of your presser foot. So that part does take a lot of wear when it's sewing because it's always moving. So again, lack of lubrication of this is going to be a noisy Z-axis and possibly your presser foot not working as it should. So we're going to go ahead and click next. And we need to pay very, very close attention. We have to get this cover reinstalled. If we do not get this cover reinstalled, when the machine goes to change needles, all of the needle bars are going to drop. The reason being is the needle bars that aren't being used right in this groove right here. So if this cover is not there and the machine goes to color change to the right, all of those needle bars are going to fall out. So when we're putting this cover back on, we're not putting it on tight. We're going to get it to where it's just kind of snug, because we need this cover to move when the needle case comes across so that it gets set in the correct position. If this cover is not set in the correct position, the machine can get color change errors. Can get a color change seek error, a color change timeout, or if we go back to the Amaya red and white, it would be a color change selector stepper index error or something of that verbiage. So I've got all 5 screws reinstalled. They're not loose, but they're not tight. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. Again, we're giving you another warning. If you proceed without mounting the right upper arm front cover, damage to your machine will occur and a service call will be necessary. Melco will not be held responsible for damages. So to put that straightforward, that is not a warrantable service call. That will be a fully billable service call. So please get these covers back in place. So we're going to go ahead and click next. And if you'll notice, the machine is going to color change over to the right. And it's going to stop right before the right 2 screws. And now's when I'm going to do my final tightening on those 2 screws. Then I'm going to click next. It's going to color change to the left, which is going to allow me to get the other 3. So what we have done here is we have let the needle case and the needle bar drive studs set the position of this cover instead of the cover telling those items where to go. So we're going to go ahead and click next, and this procedure is using some red HP grease, and you are lubricating this channel right here. We'll click next again, and the machine is going to color change all the way over to the right. And it has rotated the Z again for us. And this time we are going to take off the left cover. This left cover only has 4 screws. It does not have the 5th, which is the little button head down on the corner. Now that I have those 4 screws removed, I will click next, and I can remove this cover off of the machine. With this cover removed, what we are lubricating here is your presser foot cam. So this is the brownish item that's located on the left. I always describe it as like a ski slope. So what we're going to do is just on the right side face of this cam, we are just going to apply some red HP grease. The item that you lubricated on the right side for the presser foot, this is the other side of it, and the follower runs up and down this cam, and that's what adjusts your presser foot height. So we're going to click next. Again, we're telling you you need to reinstall this cover. So we will get this cover back in place. And we will get the screws loosely again. Not tight, not loose, but just snug so that when the machine color changes, it will set the position of this cover. So usually what I'll do is I will thread these in until they're tight, and then I'll just back them off just maybe 1/4 of a turn. Again, if these covers aren't positioned correctly, You could introduce color change errors to the machine. CC timeout, color change seek error. So I've got my cover reinstalled. I'm going to click next. And again, we're telling you, make sure you've got that cover on before you proceed any further. Next again, machine is going to color change over to the left. And just give me access to these two outboards. I'm going to click next again. Machine's going to color change over to the right. And now I can access the two inboards for that cover. Okay, those are now secure. And our final step is the lubrication of this groove with the red HP grease. Machine is color changed. We have now finished our 30 million stitch lubrication. We have one more final lubrication, and this is for the feed rollers. The feed rollers are going to be either your red or black pinch rollers that are up here on top. And if we lift the lever up, the white thread feed gear that is below that. What's very nice about the advanced side of the operating software is if I go to feed rollers, I can actually just lubricate the ones that are used the most instead of having to do all 16 positions. So if we look at the software, you can see we've got needles 1 through 16, and we've got our stitch count, and we've got our remaining counts. So you can see that needle 2's not used very much. Needle 14. So those guys, maybe I don't have time to do the maintenance right now. I'm just going to get those guys done, and then I can come back in later throughout the maintenance. We're going to go ahead and do a step all, and we'll stay on the software so that we can show you the pictures. So again, we're telling you follow the procedures. And what we're having you do is you lift all 16 of the pinch levers, and then you'll remove the access cover to the thread feed wheels. And then the picture on the left demonstrates using screwdrivers. On the newer products, I believe it started with the EMT 16s and the Melco Bravos. The picture on the right, we came up with the thread feed removal tool. That tool is available on Shop Melco if you would like to go ahead and get one of those if you don't have one. So we're going to clean out the pockets down inside, get the old residual grease out of there. We're going to clean off the spindles on the thread feed wheels themselves, get the grease off of there. And then we're going to apply the EMB polymer. So on the newer machines, this is going to be the white grease that is in your operator's kit. When you're applying this, make sure that you're only getting the grease on the spindles themselves. We don't want to get any of the grease on the rubberized part of the thread feed wheel. Go ahead and reinstall your wheels, and then reinstall your black covers. Now, I would like to look at the second paragraph here. Rock the cover forward and down until it snaps into place. Keep in mind that the covers overlap and will reinstall easiest starting with needle number 1. I can't tell you how many times that we've been teaching this in class, and people will start at 16 and work their way to the right. By the time they get to needles 1, 2, or 3, them covers do not go on very easily. So start with 1 and work your way to the left. Next is removing of the pinch roller. It just snaps off of the spindle. And you're just going to clean the spindle off. Clean off the little tines. There's 3 tines on the inside of the pinch roller. Again, your pinch rollers can be red and or black. There is no performance difference between the colors. You're going to add a little drop of grease onto the spindle, onto the tines of the wheel, and then reinstall. So symptoms of the thread feed not being lubricated properly. If in the middle of sewing, your thread is sliding out from underneath the pinch roller, that's an indication that the pinch roller is not lubricated. What is happening is while the machine is sewing, the pinch roller is stalling and allowing the thread to shoot out from underneath. A thread feed wheel, the white one underneath, not lubricated properly, or that's in need of replacement, will be thread breaks. Snap our wheels back down. We have now completed. And if you'll notice, if I exit and I come back in, all my feed rollers should have reset. So that is the lubrications that the operating software prompts you to do. Lubrications are very, very important to the functionality of the embroidery machine. You have to put gas in your car to drive it, unless you got a hybrid. So you need to lubricate a machine to have it run properly. A lot of the symptoms you're going to see from improper lubrication or lack of lubrication are thread breaks. So you can take a half hour, 45 minutes out of your week to do these lubrications, and it's probably going to save you a lot of headaches in the long run. So thank you very much for your time. Again, my name's Chris Fenton, and I'm the service manager for Melco. Thank you again, and have a good day.